The year was 1984. Songwriter Ray Parker Jr. had arrived in LA to work with the band New Edition on their new song Mr. Telephone Man, when Columbia Pictures called him up to write the theme for a new film called Ghostbusters. He was given precisely 2.5 days to do so.
No job is too big, no fee is too big.
There is so much to this song and this story. We could talk about how it was a #1 hit, how it almost won an Oscar. We could talk about its cool, bluesy funk tonality, how it was inspired by the idea of writing a TV jingle. We could talk about the fact that the gang vocals in this part were actually just Parker's girlfriend and her friends. How Parker was sued for stealing the melody. How he sued the guy who sued him for talking about it. How there are some 60 other Ghostbusters melodies out there that the studio declined that we'll never hear.
The choice is made.
Whoa! Nobody choose anything!
This song is so full of great stuff, but others have covered lots of it. We want to talk about this section right here. It's like a funk siren. It's like emergency services have been dispatched to save you from a life without funk. Or there's a ghost there or something.
I feel so funky.
The harmony here is like its own kind of Doppler effect. The way sounds get higher in pitch as they approach you and lower as they move away. The harmony kind of climbs throughout the section, increasing the intensity. It's getting closer, while the bass descends like that part's moving away from you. So what's actually happening here? Well, to start with, we've got a bass line that's walking down what could be a Dorian or a Mixolydian scale, from the 1 to the flat 7, the 6, and then down to the 4. It's playing against this repeating horn line that stays still. In this way, it's almost similar to something called a line cliche, when one line moves in a stepwise motion while the chord stays the same. Think James Bond. But in this case, a little funkier and with that leap to the 4 at the end. The melody is just basically these two notes repeated, D and B, which is funny because so much of the song has a D sharp in it, the major third. But here the melody is very much the minor third.
This is big, Peter. This is very big. There's definitely something here.
This tonal ambiguity, having both major thirds and minor thirds in the same song, is a classic bit of dissonance borrowed from the blues, and it's super common in funk music. Same with this little chromatic walk up from the A to the B at the end of the phrase. Toward the end of the section, Parker adds another layer of horns over the top, getting higher and increasing the wailing sound.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
But honestly, the thing that makes this section so funky is the syncopation between the horn line and the drums. Now, the drums are just doing a normal backbeat with kick and snare on quarter notes and the hi-hats playing eighth notes. It's very straightforward, very similar to the drums that are playing throughout the song. But the horns come in playing a dotted rhythm against that, which means they fall on the offbeats of the measure, accenting different parts of the measure. Syncopation. Syncopated rhythms seem to kind of push and pull a beat. They create a certain amount of tension that then kind of releases when the parts interact or come together. That's exactly what happens here. If we were to write these parts out in notation, they would look like this. Basically, you've got a horn note playing every 3/16 notes. That means the notes end up falling at slightly weird moments of the measure, like the of beat 1 or the E of beat 3, and so on. Let's try to clap this rhythm out, but slowed down a bunch. We could tap our foot to keep track of the quarter notes, speak the 16th note rhythms, and then try clapping the horn part. Give it a shot. If you had trouble with that, I don't blame you. It's a little complicated, and that's because it's a polyrhythm. Polyrhythms are when you have two parts playing different clashing rhythms. They're super common in musical traditions that give primacy to rhythm, like West African drumming, Latin American rhythms, or even some forms of Indian classical music. In this case, we have a polyrhythm between the horn part and the drums that are staying on the beat. Check it out. We've got these two measures right here with the kick and the snare playing on the beat. Every beat gets a note. But the horn takes these first 6 beats and divides it evenly into 8 notes, essentially dividing 6 by 8. The other way to look at this is that we have 2 repetitions of a 4/3 polyrhythm, followed by these 2 beats at the end where everyone syncs up. The syncopation that results isn't just random, it's a result of the way those specific polyrhythms interact with each other to form this rhythmic mosaic. The horn part and the kick and snare part actually line up on beat 1 of the measure and beat 4 of the measure. Those moments are emphasized with a bass note and an open hi-hat. And they line up again on beat 3 of the second measure, where they kind of release the polyrhythm and end up playing a more unified 3 and 4 and for the last 2 beats. It's almost like a little stutter step before they start the polyrhythm all over again. If you're up for another challenge, see if you can play this kind of 4/3 polyrhythm with your hands on the table. Maybe start by tapping the kick snare part with your left hand. And then when you've got that part established and you're comfortable, try playing the horn part with your right hand. That's not an easy thing to do. You're basically trying to keep 2 conflicting rhythms in your mind at the same time. I find that one part often gets kind of pulled over into the other part over time. They want to unite. So if you want to take it a little bit more slowly, let's slow the whole thing down and we'll try doing it while counting the way we did before. To do this, first let's establish that 3 part. We'll count it as 1 eanda, 2 eanda, 3 eanda. And then we're going to divide that into 4 evenly spaced notes, which means they're going to fall on the 1, the the and the e. It looks something like this. Honestly, I find this sort of thing a little bit easier to do by feel than counting, especially if you can hear something like the Ghostbusters horn part in your head that helps guide you. But there's nothing wrong with doing it the other way too, starting very slow, counting, and then speeding up until it feels more natural. Whatever the case, if you ever find yourself facing a 4/3 rhythm in the future, hopefully now you know it's nothing to fear.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
That's it. Thanks for watching. This has been Ian for Soundfly. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please like and subscribe to our channel so we can make more videos just like this. And don't forget to come to soundfly.com, become a member, get access to our community, our courses, and so much more.